Hi, good morning. Today is October 24th, 2025. My name is Rinaldo J. Aguilar Marcano, and I'm recording this video from my home located at the 26714 Valleyside Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. And give me just a quick second to adjust this here. Yes. So this is a quick session, and in order for me to timestamp this observation. So today again is October 24, 2025, and it's 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time. The timestamp is important because of what I'm going to say. If this turns out to be the case, it will just prove that Morgan Hybner is an agent of Diosdado Cabello, right? And El Cartel de los Soles. So this is an inference that was produced by the AMP, right? The anti-manipulation pipeline. So what happened was, and this is in continuation of the previous video that I recorded this morning, in which I went over the HybnerBoost signal, trademark pending. So what happened, right? I ingested the transcript of that demo into the AMP and the anti-manipulation pipeline, right? And in the next run, it flagged two conversations that I had yesterday, just yesterday, right? So one conversation, I want to detail the conversations here so you see what is it like. I mean, this is an inference, right? It hasn't happened, but if it happens, it will show, well, first of all, that Morgan Hybner, right, has been acting as an agent of the network that is targeting me since April, right? And also, it will show that the technology is accurate, right? And that the geo-index is very accurate. Because both pipelines, as an input, as one of the inputs, use the geo-index, right? So if the geo-index was inaccurate, the pipelines would produce inaccurate results. So yeah, so the two conversations yesterday, right? So one conversation, so the common theme of the two conversations, so these are conversations that happen between me and another party via text messages or voice, right? Because I have the transcripts, I have the text messages, and I ingest everything into the AMP, the anti-manipulation pipeline. So both conversations, they've got flagged for many reasons, but these two conversations specifically have something in common, is that they have mentions about child support, okay? So one of the conversations was with Penelope Suarez. In the last few days, I've been trying to contact her for a while for different reasons, but, and she responds to my messages, but like short phrases, like she, to the point that I thought that maybe she was in Venezuela, right? But it seems like she's here because she replied to me and I was able to see her on camera and she seems to be here in Katy. But anyhow, she has been non-responsive in a way, right? Like she responds, but only with short phrases. And this has been for the last, I don't know, maybe 30 days, right? But a few days ago, I would say like 5 days ago, she started becoming a little bit more responsive. Like she would say longer phrases, like she would be more engaged in the text message, right, in the conversation. And, we started talking and the conversation came up like, why don't we do a video call of 5 minutes just to say hi, right? And we both agree and we had that video call yesterday, okay? And in that video call, she asked me, and of course, the conversation got recorded and I have the transcripts, right? She asked me a series of questions regarding my former partner and my son, right? And she asked me if I was supporting my son financially, right? She asked me that question, to which, of course, I said yes, right? But then she started asking me about other questions about Gloria's finances, right? About, how's Gloria doing and how is Gloria paying for her lawyers, things like that. So that's one conversation, right? And it has a mention to child support. Then there's another text messaging exchange yesterday with my former partner, in which the exchange started because I asked her about the health insurance payments, right? Like, they usually come out, and I've been paying for the health insurance of all of us, right, including her personal health insurance, right? Although we're separated, but I still pay for her health insurance and her car insurance and everything, right? But anyhow, I asked her about I don't know. It occurred to me to ask her if she had changed the payment method of the health insurance. To which she said yes. So she removed the payment. She changed the payment method, which was coming out of my bank account, and she moved it somewhere else, right? Where I cannot see if the payments are being made or not, right? And then we had a small exchange about that, because that, I think, that is a no. I mean, the judge did not order anything about health insurance on September 11th, and she made that change, which she shouldn't have, right? Because she's changing the setup that we have, and that is disruptive. That could disrupt the health insurance of the child, right? She's doing that without a judge or a court order. But anyhow, she changed it, right, unilaterally. So I told her, the conversation evolved in the following, right? I asked her if she could put the child in a separate policy, just so the cost of the insurance of the child is known, right? Because if she has the child in her own policy, then she's going to get an invoice every month, and that invoice is going to reflect the health insurance costs of her and everybody else and the child. But there will be no way to know how much was the health insurance of the child. And then she's going to ask me to reimburse her for the entire amount, right? So I asked her politely if she could remove the child and put him in a separate policy, so we all know how much it costs, right? And I can reimburse her for that. She said no. She said, I'm going to do what the order said. That's what she wrote. The order said. And I told her, the judge on September 11 didn't say anything, right? Didn't say anything about health insurance. Like, you're making this up, right? And I went and I filed in federal court this information, like the text messages, because she is basically, I thought, right, she was trying to enforce an order that was only written in the draft of Morgan Heidner, the fraudulent draft that she submitted on the 9th that never got signed, right? That's what I thought. So I went and filed that with the federal court. But the finding, right, of this fraudulent document, the fraudulent title document of April 9th, 2025, and the subsequent signing of these mysterious temporary orders that are not anywhere, and the missing Index 7 document in the docket, right? All these got flagged by the anti-manipulation pipeline. So I got the signals and I put them in the legal vaccine. I run it, and the legal vaccine thinks that what might be, I mean, this is a hypothesis, right? Because obviously I'm not inside of the mind of Morgan Heidner. But the hypothesis, what the legal vaccine calculates, is that Morgan Heidner might be holding a signed temporary restraining order signed by a judge on April 11, 2025, imposing certain financial obligations that I was never informed of, because she never served me with that, right? And she didn't even file it. And the document number 7 is missing in the docket. So I have no way to know what she has in her pocket, right? And Penelope Suarez yesterday was asking me if I was supporting my son, right? And my former partner, when she said that message that she was going to do what the order said, she wrote, you should be paying health insurance, child support, and rent. So she's saying that I also have to pay her rent. But she put in there the child support, and I've been paying child support. I've been supporting my child since always. Like I would never, I mean, it's the question doesn't even need to be asked, right? The only time where I could not support him was when Morgan Heidner had him secreted for 50 days, and they were refusing to tell me where he was. I didn't know where he was, therefore I could not send any payments. I mean, I don't know where the child is, right? That was a period of 50 days that they had them in that state where they had them somewhere, and I didn't know where he was, right? And they sent me one picture that was kind of cropped, so I couldn't see anything in the picture except the face of the child, right? It was like anyhow. So the theory or the hypothesis derived from the legal vaccine is that Morgan Heibner might have this secret document in her back pocket, signed by a judge, imposing a series of obligations, right, that were never properly served to me or disclosed to me. I didn't even know that this document exists if I didn't discover it this morning through the use of data science and engineering, right? And but it gets more serious than that. The legal vaccine also co-cluster, and this of course is a hypothesis, right? But if this plays out in this way, it would prove the Monell claim. Okay, it would be definitive proof of Monell. The vaccine co-clustered this with another occurrence, which is that on 9/15, as I was going to federal court to file a document, and this is demonstrable because anybody can see the document in federal court and can see that I filed the document on that day. Right? As I was traveling there, I was stopped by a police officer of the last name, his deputy Nunes, N-U-N-E-Z, right? As in Zulu. And he stopped me on Cinco Ranch Boulevard, close to La Centerra shopping mall. And he gave me a citation because supposedly the lights of my SUV were blue. They're not blue, they're white, right? But I described this incident in another video, right? And in fact, I also already filed this with the federal court because this is, police harassment. Right? But anyhow, he gave me a citation for October 28th, which is next Tuesday, right? So the hypothesis of the pipeline, it's not a hypothesis, right? But it's like a possibility, right? It's something the pipeline sees that could be connected. That because Morgan Heibner, because they send that police officer to give me that citation for that day, right? So they know that I have to go to the courthouse to respond to that on the 28th. So what the pipeline is flagging is that if Morgan Heibner has this secret temporary restraining order in her back pocket with obligations that were never disclosed to me, and now she has two witnesses that have mentioned, right, something about financial obligation, and the petitioner implying that I'm not paying child support. That's what she's saying, right? She's saying you should pay child support. I've been supporting my child since he was born, right, without interruptions. But she's writing that in a way that could be interpreted as I'm not supporting the child. So if Morgan Heibner has this secret temporary restraining order in her back pocket, signed by a judge, but never filed, or filed and then removed from the docket, right, tampering with the docket, she could seek enforcement for that. And as I'm walking into the courthouse to plead not guilty to the citation, right, the ticket, well, it's not a ticket, it's a citation. I don't really know if I have to plead not guilty, but as I'm walking into the courthouse, right, Morgan Heibner could fabricate a warrant for my arrest, right, based on not paying child support, right? And that would, solve all her problems, right? Because it would look like I'm a criminal that doesn't want to support his own child, right? When the reality is the opposite. She is a criminal committing all these sorts of frauds against multiple courts. But that seems to be a possibility, right? So maybe that's why that document 7 is mysteriously missing, and maybe that's why Penelope Suarez, I don't want to say that she asked me to talk, but she became more responsive out of the sudden. And after we talked in that conversation, she became unresponsive again. Like I texted her a couple of times and she doesn't reply. So it seems to me like, well, I'm going to say this. I talked to the Venezuelan informant, right? I think it was last night, can't recall. And he told me that after my conversation with Penelope, sort of a kind of an alarm went off in the Venezuelan intelligence, right? And apparently they issued some sort of, I don't know if it would be called an order, right? But they issued a directive that none of this, like Penelope, for example, she cannot talk to me unless authorized, like unless the 7 gives her the go-ahead to talk to me, right? And we haven't really talked about why. I imagine it's because I mentioned to her the federal lawsuit. Like, she didn't know that there was a federal lawsuit. Right? So she didn't know the level of legal exposure she was getting into by engaging with me in that conversation. And when I mentioned to her the federal lawsuit, I could see in her face that she reacted to that, right? Like, she was surprised, very surprised. So maybe it's because of that, right? Because maybe they were able to convince her to talk to me because she didn't know that there was a federal lawsuit, right? And she thought that they had this under control in Katy here locally, right? But anyhow, he told me that that order was issued, that not order, that directive, right? Like, they can't talk to me unless they're authorized. But anyhow, so yesterday there were these 2 conversations in which 2 different women asked me or mentioned to me something about child support, and there is that missing temporary restraining order, mysteriously missing, index number 7, that is not in the docket. And if you look at the sequence of entries in the docket, it's obvious that Morgan Hybner submitted something supposedly corrected, right, that then got signed. But she never sent me with that. And the entries that justify the supposed correction are false. One says that the original document didn't have a signature block, and it does have a signature block. So it seems designed, it seems like this is a weapon that they were saving for a moment like this. And this would be, remarkable, really, commendable, because it means that they created this weapon 7 months ago, before I was able to uncover any of this, right? So it's tremendous level of foresight that they have. And that means that they have done this before many times, right? And they have learned, and they know how it could backfire. So that's all I'm going to say for now about that potential weapon that I think Morgan Hybner might be hiding somewhere. Which I think the existence of the weapon would be evidence of the crime, right? Evidence of the tampering with the court records, for example, obstructing justice by not serving me the document, right? Yeah. I get the feeling like if she takes out that weapon, she's going to spend at least 2 or 3 years just going in and out of court, right? Before she starts, paying her dues. Anyhow, so that's that. The other thing I wanted to mention, right, is that after I did the previous session, I realized something came to my mind, right? Like, I realized something that it's obvious to me now, but I didn't see it before, and I'm going to say it. In one of the demos before, I was giving a demo, right? And I said about legal topics. And I said in the demo, I'm going to concentrate in this demo on the procedural things, because obviously that is the weapon, right? Not the substance of the matter. It's not, whether I'm crazy. I mean, we haven't even talked about the divorce. We haven't even talked about the custody of the child. All these 7 months have been about, whether they can call me crazy and send me to a psychiatrist, right? That's been the only topic. Anyhow, but I finally this morning understood why. I mean, I guess I understood it intuitively when I gave that demo, because I said I'm going to focus on the procedure, right, not on the substance. So that means that I understood that the weapon was the procedure. But I did not understand at that point why. And there's a reason, right? The reason is industrialization and scalability. If you have to harass people, imagine that you are them, right? And you create a criminal network and you employ thousands of lawyers to harass people with legal action, right? If you really have to fight it, I mean, if you really have to effect the harassment on the merits of the claims, you will have to have the biggest law firm in the world. It would effectively be the biggest law firm operation in the world. Like, you will have to have thousands of lawyers thinking all day how to harass these people with substantive matters, right? It requires a tremendous amount of work, of mental work, right? Of planning, of legal arguments, of real work, real legal work, right? They're not going to do that for many reasons, right? First, the communist paradox, right? These lawyers are not, I don't want to sound like I'm putting them down or anything, right? but it's just a consequence of their system. Like it's a system that is not based on merit, but on who's willing to commit more crimes or more serious crimes. So the people that get promoted are the people that have, that are more criminal in a way, right? Not the ones that have the best legal arguments, right? That's the reason why they're in this situation, because Morgan Hybner commits mistakes like admitting on the record that she knows that the orders are not signed, right? I mean, if she was a competent lawyer, she would never have said that, right? But the other reason is scalability. Well, the other reason is secrecy, right? If you're really running a law firm of this size, imagine you would have 100,000 lawyers, right, or 200,000. It would be the size of Google and Meta and combined, right? But full of lawyers, right? They would have to be talking and communicating about arguments and disputes and things, right, all day, like a real law firm, right? And these could be intercepted by the FBI or by other agencies, right? And then, so they can be doing that. Right? So it doesn't scale because it compromises the secrecy. So the solution is to employ a set of TTPs that are based on procedure, on attacking the procedural rules of the systems. And that way, the communication needed is minimal. For example, right? Imagine that you are a new Morgan Hybner that is going to come as a new lawyer into this criminal organization, right? And you get a case, and they tell you, well, you have to harass this person, and to harass him, what you're going to do is simple. File your documents always the night before, and if he objects, you object because he's not giving you proper knowledge. Like that's the TTP is 3 lines, right? And any lawyer getting these simple instructions will understand what to do. And because they have other people in the system compromised, it will work, right? Or another TTP, you have a different Morgan Hybner coming into the firm, right? And you give him another target, you give this person another target, and you say, well, this one, you're going to harass him by sending a scheduling request titled as if it was a temporary restraining order. And then the clerk is going to reject the document saying that it's missing the signature block, and then you're going to file the real one, but don't file it in person. Keep it in your pocket. And serve him with the previous one. Right? You just say that, the lawyer will understand, right, what to do. It just takes 3 lines of communication. And it doesn't get into the substantive matter of the problem. Right? It's scalable because it's an industrialized approach to committing this kind of frauds. And also, it scales well across jurisdictions, because if you look at it in a single country, all the jurisdictions are based on the same principles, right? I mean, California law is a little bit different, but it's the same legal basis, right? Like the same, they all come from the same predecessors, right, of legal systems. And they have more or less the same rules. So what will change is the number of the procedural rule, right? But the equivalent to Rule 18A in Texas has an equivalent in California, right? That is just different, right? And then what they need is a translation layer software. I'm talking about software, right? That would translate what is the rule and the name of the civil code of procedure that applies, right? To exploit the timing of the notice, right? Or the recusal, right, of the judge. So it's just a translation layer, but the underlying principles are present in pretty much every single legal system, at least in the Western civilizations. So I think that's the reason. The reason why they fight on procedure and not on merits is because, well, lack of competency of the lawyers, right? And minimize the risk of errors like the one Morgan Hybner did on October 10. On October 16, sorry, when she said that the motion to recuse was based on something that never happened, right? Implying that she knew the orders were not signed, although she created the document saying that the orders were signed, right? I mean, she confessed. And the other reason is because if they had to fight things on merit, right, even if the system was compromised and they could win it, they would require to actually think about the arguments and discuss them and talk about them, and that creates a weakness because those conversations could be intercepted, right? And they would be proof that they're committing these crimes. So they need something that is repeatable and fast, like quickly transmittable between their agents. Right? That doesn't require a brainstorming session. Right? You say a lawyer, these 5 phrases, and they will know what to do. Right? So those were the 2 updates that I have for this short session. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.